Aloha, everyone, and welcome to Redtime Stories. I'm your host, Tamara Mackay, and we're here to share stories and talk about things that have to do with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness while protecting our First Amendment rights. Thank you for tuning in for another episode to Redtime Stories. Last week, we had a guest from Texas with Dr. Trey Penny, who's running for Congress. And now this week, we are happy to talk to, in our story session, with a wonderful, great Stephen Stern, all the way from Florida. Steve is a youngster at 81 years old and has been a pillar of inspiration. His passion to save this country is unstoppable. He just hosted an amazing summit from many leaders across the nation to include Mike Lindell, Steve Bannon, General Flynn, and so many others. And we're looking forward to him sharing that experience with us. He has a great relationship with President Donald Trump, and he was very persistent in getting his support for the Precinct Committeemen program. There's so much more to Steve Stern, and I look forward to hearing him expand on more and what I mentioned and what inspires him and what are some future goals that he can help inspire us to get to the end in saving our country. He's the ultimate patriot in my book. So without further ado, let's get started with our session with the great Stephen Stern.
Well, I'm just an average guy. I'm not great. I've been in business 69 years. I started when I was 12. My dad told me about the Depression, and a lot of our young people today have no clue what that is. Mm-hmm. So about 20 years ago, I decided, I had been working all these years, and I decided that I was going to do a little bit of politicking. So I got involved in the Broward Republican Executive Committee. But a lot of strange things happened. I called up for 3 months to join, and nobody returned the call. So I said, that doesn't make sense. So finally, after 3 months and persistence, somebody returned the call. And I said, I'd like to get an application to join the Broward Republican Executive Committee. Well, it took another 3 months till somebody sent the application. And I said, wow, this is crazy. Here, I want to volunteer my time. And if it takes 6 months to get in that, multiply that throughout the United States, we're losing a lot of volunteers. So finally, after about 8 months, they finally got me in. I got inducted. I got my training manuals, and I sat in the Broward Republican meeting where we had about 125 people. And there was a lot of older people. And at that point, I was, 20 years younger. I just turned 82. So I was in the 60s, and I was in kind of the prime of my life. I had been working a lot, and, I wanted something else to do for the country because, I knew that the country was turning. My kids, were growing up, and my grandkids, and, we wanted to make sure that they're taken care of. So I sat there for a meeting, and not a person came up to me. I said, wow, this is crazy. Here I'm joining. And, you would think that people would introduce people to each other. And no. So I sat for 3 meetings. I finally went up to the chairman. And I said, I'd like to take over the committee for membership. She said, oh, that's great. We have nobody who really wants to do it. And I said, by the way, I'd like to take over the phone system. So I did that. And I went to the phone system. There was 182 calls that were never answered. Oh. So I called everybody because I've been making calls in my business type thing. That stuff happened. And so I was able to make the calls, spoke to all the people, apologized that we didn't call back, and said, if you ever call my cell phone. Don't even waste your time calling them. So call me. And they turn this off. Excuse me.
That's okay.
I usually do that. I missed it. So I took over the phone calls, and I asked a lot of the people, what they wanted. And they said, well, we want to get involved. I said, well, wait a minute. How long did you call? You said, oh, I called 3 months ago, just like I did. So I got all the people involved. I started calling people around the Broward, and we raised, in a year, we went from 125 to 275 people. So I felt that was a great thing. And what I would do is when the people came in, I would introduce one to other people. And, we made it like a family type thing. And so this went on, and I saw that these people actually did nothing. They go to a meeting, they'd say, oh, we want to do this, do that. And they didn't do much. So I would say about 3 years ago, I was watching Steve Bannon, and a guy came on, Dan Schultz, who wrote the book. And I saw he wrote the book. why you should join the Republican Party, and he had a website, www.precinctstrategy.com. So I bought the book. I read the book. I had known everything anyway, but I wanted to see what it was. And I called Dan and I said, this is what we're doing in Broward County, and this is what I'm doing, and how I got 125 to 300. And he said, wow, that's great. Let me speak to Steve Bannon and see if I can get you on. So I got on, and that night I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I said, wow, I'm going to be on TV in front of I don't know how many people, and I'd never been on TV before. And I said, I better make some notes. So at 4:30 in the morning, I started making notes, and my notes had notes. So again, you're going to be nervous getting on to a program that you had no idea what you were doing. But I prepared well, and I got on there. And Steve Bannon texted me after and said, "You did a terrific job. We're going to have you on again." And over the 3 years, probably been on about 50 or 60 times. And what we started doing was we started selling the product. So the Republican Party is a product. And as we were doing this, I got more and more people involved. And Steve says about a year and a half ago, could you get me a bunch of people for success stories? Well, what is a success story? He said, well, some similar to what you did. So I brought him a bunch of success stories, and he put the first guy on. And I got a guy in New Mexico. So when we put the guy in New Mexico and told me he's going to, he said, why are you bringing somebody from New Mexico? Why don't you bring somebody from the red state? And, let's get all these swing states. I said, wait a minute. Let's get the people who are doing a good job and why they're doing it and how they're doing it. And after he heard the guy in New Mexico who in a blue state did a terrific job, he said, oh, I understand. So the next guy we got on was from Delaware. And he said, again, well, what are you bringing us from Delaware? It's a small state. I said, we need every state. And we proceeded to do a lot of states, and I proceeded to listen to them because I had not heard what they were going to say. And we had about 20 on, and 19 of them did a good job. One or two, there was a problem with connections and stuff like that. And he kind of got upset with some of the people that they weren't what he wanted to be. And I said, well, wait a minute, everybody can't be a superstar. So I started refraining it, and I started giving him even better and better people. So some of the successes that we've had, because everybody wants to know what a success is. You're in Hawaii, you're a blue state. We have problems out there, but the problems are all over the country. So I'll give you a couple of success stories you'll be very happy with. We have a girl in New Jersey, Elizabeth Nader, who I got very friendly with. And I had just recently been up in New Jersey at a seat at the table, which she did. And she started a club with a guy named Spadia that had started with 10 people a year ago. They have 110,000 people involved now. It's called Common Sense Club. So you could see in a blue state, we can do a lot of good things. And so she had me up in New Jersey about 2 months ago at her little event where she had about 30 speakers. And she had done it the year before, so she really knew what she was doing. And I met Sebastian Gorka. I met many, many people up there. I was on a panel with Cleta Mitchell and some of the other people. However, when I got through with my speech and at the end, they gave me a standing ovation. Why did that happen? Because what I do prior to going to any place, I try to call the people that are going to be listening so they understood what I was going to do and they paid attention. And that's what happened. So prior to going on, we had about an hour prior to that. I went up to everybody, gave my card, introduced myself, and got their names and numbers so that I could call them. So after the event, about 3 or 4 days later, I started calling people and, asking them what they were doing in New Jersey and how we could help. And it was like every other state. They got their problems as well as every other state. So let's put ourselves in a couple of the other states. Michigan is a state that's a blue state. And they just, about 3 or 4 months ago, got a new head of the Republican Party, Christina Caroma. And Joe Welch, who's on our team, he got 3,400 people involved. And, there was a lot of problems in Michigan. So we're trying to solve some of those problems. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the other states, and then we'll tell you how we're going to try to solve some of those problems. So in Texas, we got a guy named Robert West, who will be on our next Zoom meeting. And just to let you know, we have Zoom meetings every 3 weeks. We probably won't have one in July because everybody's on vacation pretty much. But these Zoom meetings are precinct strategy, and I'll tell you how we started that. Because we had so many people and we were trying to let them know from area to area what was going on. So you knew that we were doing something in Rhode Island or this state or that state, and you came on, you told the people in Hawaii, hey, we have a chance to do something because I heard this person did what this. So we have a guy in um, Texas, Robert West. He'll be on our Zoom next Tuesday night. And he wrote the book, The 5-Star Plan. And that's exciting because a girl called me 3 or 4 months ago and said, hey, I got a guy. I should have called you two years ago. He's done a terrific job. And what has he done? Well, he drove 8 hours to speak to 16 people. Now, not too many people do that. But he also got 1,000 people involved in county committees in Texas. Well, that's an outstanding situation. So he has a website, he has a podcast, and we have him on in a lot of stations. We tell other people about him so he can spread the word. So that's Texas. Let's go to California. And you're the closest to California, and you probably go there a lot. And about 3 months ago, a girl named Tina Celine called me and said, hey, I saw you on Bannon, and I want to get involved. Well, we talk to her every other day, every day. She got me 10,000 people in California. Well,
Wow.
10,000 people. She got me groups. So we have different groups in California. And the reason they have all these groups is because in California, you're limited to the amount of people you're going to have on the central committee. So California did something like that because they want control. So as you know, control is what a lot of Republicans try to do. So we're bringing in MAGA, America First, into a lot of the central committees to try to move that out. And eventually our goal is if you have 20 people in the central committee in the city, we want to have 100 people. So because those people are now moving into other organizations, Tea Party, CRS, many, many different operations, which I'm speaking to. So it's going to take me 3 or 4 months to understand exactly what they're doing because over the years, we did a lot in Southern California. Most of these people are in Northern California. And I've spoke on some of the Zoom meetings at their clubs, and they have the same problem that everybody else does. They have people come to these nice dinners, and then they go home and they never do a thing. So our goal out there is to figure out how we're going to get more people involved to actually work. And this is almost every state in the union. And if you get 1,000 people, maybe you're going to get 30, 40, 50 to work. So we have to find out how we're going to do it. So precinct strategy, which is the Republican Party, and unfortunately, Ronna McDaniel doesn't have anything to do with us, so it makes no sense. And that's some of the reasons why we're struggling, because we have 210,000 people with 400,000 slots. Where are all those people? Where are the 60 million Republican voters that work? So we have to figure that out. So I figured, as you see in the background, I've been with President Trump 3 or 4 times. He endorsed precinct strategy. And the last time I saw him was, I've saw him since, but the last time I had a face-to-face with him, I asked him if he could, at his rallies, speak to people and get them involved. He said he would do that, but as of yet, he hasn't done it. And why is that important? Well, if you go out and 50,000 people and you ask him, President Trump ask him to get involved, we have a lot better chance than me going on your show and to asking people to get involved. Even though I do it when I go on Bannon, I could get 100 phone calls and I got to answer them. So what I do is I put my number up, as you've seen. We'll do it here. If anybody wants a call, give me a call at 954-318-6902, S Stern 1054 AOL. And also, you see all the flag shirts behind it. We own theflagshirt.com. And even though you're in Hawaii, we get a lot of patriots buying shirts there.
Absolutely.
And remember, 4th of July is coming up. So if you want an order, you buy today and we'll get it out to you before the 4th of July. Again, 954-318-6902 or email me at stern1054 AOL. I answer all the calls because I knew that people call, they get frustrated if you never call back. And a lot of people will tell me when I call them back, I never thought you were going to call. Well, I can tell you 100% gets called. Now, sometimes I'll call them back because what I do is I don't answer any phone call. I get it on the computer after the call to make sure that they're a legitimate person, because you get that are crack calls, and other stuff. So we just don't answer them. So anybody who's legitimate, we call back. And a lot of people, believe it or not, order shirts from us that don't have a computer. So they want to buy them and call our people. So they'll call me and say, hey, I'd like to buy a shirt, but I would like to, I don't have a computer. How do I do it? So we get one of our girls to call and they walk them through it. And then they are able to buy shirts. So you were talking about when we first started about a little operation we had last month,
Right.
called
The summit.
the summit. So if you would like this is what we had. And if you see on the bottom, it's getpatriotized.com live stream. So if you want to go see this, and we'll tell you exactly what this is, and you can tell them also. My son got the bright idea to give me more stuff to do than I have, because not only do I do all the men's stuff, he does all the women's stuff. I design a whole line of men's shirts. I'm involved in 27 different things. So he gives me this job. And when I do a job, I do it the right way. Some people take on a job and, they do the best they can, but I knew what this could be. So 3 months in the making, I started calling people and said, hey, would you like to do this on Flag Day? And luckily, Steve Bannon and Mike Lindell helped me on the shows, but it took calling the people. So I had 60 speakers lined up. As we were running through this, some of the people said, hey, I can't do it. And then I had gone to about 6-7 weeks ago, I went to Clay Clark's event down in Miami, which is close to me because I'm at Fort Lauderdale.
Right.
And I was interviewing with different people, and I met a guy from Bright Tea on TV. And I told him what I was doing. And he said, come on, let's go sit down inside. I want to talk to you. And he said to me, Steve, I'm going to give you some advice. I said, terrific. I like advice because I don't know it all and nobody knows it all. He says, I'm going to tell you the most important thing. He says, make sure that you videotape as many people as you can. Why? Because, they may not be able to make it. They'll call you the last minute, they're this and that. So we started videotaping people, and that took a lot of time.
Yeah.
And it paid off, even though we didn't have to use most of the videos. Clay Clark ended up with his internet down, so we had a video of him. It was good. Tom Homan had to go to Israel, so we had the video of him. So now we have 60 speakers and 46 spots. So that led me to a problem. So as this was going on, some people called up and said, hey, I'm not sure if I can make it. So we put those people on the side. And as we get through there, I had a birthday, 82, on May 20th. And as I'm blowing out the candles in Palm Beach, I thought this was a great story. My friend, who's been a friend of mine for 50 years and was in business with me doing some things, he says, Steve, your phone is lighting up and it's Mike Lindell. So he says, before you blow out the candles, why don't you see what it is? So I opened it up and he said, Mike said, happy birthday. And pop in as I'm reading this, Steve Bannon comes in and wishes me a happy birthday. And Mike says, for your birthday, I'm going to let you put the program on my network. So, the right speech.
Which is awesome.
That's a special for just live events. Well, my son asked me, well, how many hours are we going to do this? I said, well, let's try from 10 o'clock in the morning so the people on the West Coast could see it all the way up to 6 o'clock at night. He said, that's 8 hours. He said, you're going to be able to stay on 8 hours? Well, I said, we'll try. So to make a long story short, Lindell's people were very busy, and I saw right away that it was going to be difficult. So I called up Jovan Pulitzer and asked him for some advice. So Jovan said, hey, let me produce it. So I said, well, all right, because he said, if you don't produce it, you're going to be in bad shape. You're going to have a show, but people aren't going to be that interested. So he started doing this. And, our people had no experience doing this. So we had to do all the things that he wanted to do. And it was a very difficult process. So just to let everybody know, because we have done this before, 10 minutes before we started, everything got loaded into the computer. And he had done advertisements and you saw it. It was a very professional job. So I want to tell everybody the back room, because you have a back room, which you're on the same wavelength that we've showed it on. We decided to have it on many, many avenues. My son put it on LinkedIn. They put it on Facebook. They put it on many
social media.
All the internet channels. So we figured we'd get maybe 25,000 people because we had sent out notices and asked people to sign up. Well, we got a couple of thousand people sign up. So we panicked. Said, wait, we're doing all this work for 2,000 people. But what we didn't realize that a lot of people didn't sign up, but they were going to come on, and it started exploding. So we had the main thing. The only way we could keep track was on Rumble. So
Right.
we were
Yeah.
able to get the track on it, and as we were going, um, um, Joe Vaughn kept saying, "Hey, 10,000 people have come on, 15,000 people have come on, 20,000." I said, "Holy cow!" So we went through all the
No,
stuff, and we had a ton of people, and we clocked it about 3 or 4 or 5 days later at about 100,000, and
that's
then
amazing.
ran it on Bright T on TV over the weekend. They were helping us, so they ran it. We ran this Wednesday. They ran this Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We probably got another 150,000 people. Plus, I sent out thousands of emails, texts, and everything. So if you think of this can mushroom up to 1 million people. We think we have about 500,000 people have seen it, but those 500,000 people may send it to another person.
Right.
Plus, every TV show I'm on, we tell them about it, and new people come on all the time because the people we had on it, we started off with General Flynn. He was one of our main people. So
Right.
people were
Mhm.
very interested in seeing General Flynn. Then Tom Homan came on, then Sebastian Gorka. Then we had Lee Greenwood. Lee Greenwood sang his song, and that was an experience in itself. I just want to let everybody know it's not the easiest thing to get. He was in France, and he was flying back that day, so we had to kind of organize it. He wasn't going to be until 11:30 or so, but he
Right.
was sure going to be on um, one of the TV channels, um, Newsmax, and he was in the Newsmax studio, and we figured we had a tape of him singing, and then if he came in live, it would be terrific. He did come in live, so we spoke to him, and he was very gracious, and he did all type of stuff. At 1 o'clock, Steve Bannon came on. Well, Steve Bannon's producer said he was going to be 10 minutes late, 15 minutes late, 20 minutes early, 10 minutes. Went back and forth, so we kind of improvised, but bam, he came in right on time, and he was nice enough to answer some questions. I asked a lot of people ask me to ask him questions all the time. So we asked him how many newspapers he read and different information. And
Mhm.
you could come on and see how it is, and they'll really like it. So then I had the bright idea to have a flag expert because it's Flag Day. We have to have it. So we had
Right.
a gentleman, Devon Simper, and he's a flag expert. And it was his first time on TV. He was a little nervous, so he came up, he gave a great explanation of the flag and what's going on, and many, many of our other people did that. So after he went on, I have a good friend that owns One American News. We had Chanel Rion, and she was fantastic. She came on after Bannon, and then we had General Orbach. General Orbach has 150 generals under him. He did a terrific job. And then after General Orbach, we had Gerald Malloy. Gerald Malloy is a colonel. He ran for Senate in New England. And then after that, we had Mike Lindell. Now you got a big guy with Mike Lindell. He came right on time at 4 o'clock. He talked to everybody. We interviewed him a little bit. He was very gracious. They would have stayed on longer, but we try to keep this right on time. We didn't want to miss a speaker because in between all those speakers, we had other speakers. And I would watch the time and, give them when we saw we were running a couple of minutes late, boom, I would come in and kind of like say, hey, time's almost up. Then we had Clay Clark come on. We had John Fredericks, who's a very close friend of mine. I'll be on his show tomorrow morning. I know it's too early for you guys. Be my time. So if you're up in the middle of the night, you can come on and watch him.
Hey,
He did.
send the link anyways because you never know.
Oh yeah,
You
the
know.
link
Yeah.
links are on all that pro. Real America Voice has links of every show. So
Okay.
you can go to Real America Voice and anybody you want to see, you can always get their links to everybody. And they have it segmented by each person that comes on.
Mhm.
So after John Fredericks, we had a few people. Mel K, who has the Mel K show, she came on and closed. And in between all this, Jovan would ask us questions about different people. And, we answered them. And we were lucky. We said, all right, let's get some sponsors. Well, why did we need sponsors? Well, nobody was paid. Nobody donated any money. We did everything for free. But the
That's
sponsors
amazing.
who are Patriot Mobile, who
Mhm.
Mammoth Nation, and a few others, they sent out the emails to all their people. So that's how we accumulated the hundreds of thousands of people that watched. So you can imagine when people tell everybody about this event and how many 46 speakers, it's unheard of because I don't think it's ever been done. So now
Well,
they're
I
all
think it was a tremendous event, Steve, that you
right.
pulled off. And with that, what were you looking to accomplish with such a feat with this summit?
Well, we were interested in what people had to say about the country. So we had asked them questions ahead of time. We sent them questions. What do you think about the flag? What do you think about patriotism? Because patriotism went from 63% down to 39%. So why
Yes.
are we losing patriot? Why are not people patriotic? And you'll get the answers by watching this. So anybody who watches your show, I'm not going to give away all the good answers.
Right.
To go ahead and watch it, and you're going to be shocked when you watch this because I haven't told you about all the non big time names, but the little time names did a phenomenal job. We had a singer up there. She sang a terrific song that somebody wrote for her about the
Hmm.
flag. She was fantastic. We had a lot of people. I had an 84-year-old guy on there who has a big organization in California. So I'm not going to give away all the great stuff, but I got to tell you, I watched every speaker because I was sitting here just like this for 8 hours and I listened to what everybody said. Everybody was fantastic. And they all had something good to say. And then if they kind of stopped, we would ask them a question and they would, come on because not everybody's used to being on TV or being in front of
Right.
many people. And they didn't know how many people they were in front of. So we're talking about, we didn't know either. You know what I mean? So as it got bigger and we saw more and more people, we try to emphasize more questions and more answers.
Well,
So
I think it's great that you had, well-known names as well as the the people throughout the communities, because people need to identify at all levels. And you're so right. The patriotism has just, you know, gone like in half, like you said. And so this is such a great thing. And to inspire people to get more involved, that's what I'm hoping that we can do more and more. And it sounds like it was such a great turnout, and we just need to keep perpetuating that. So I appreciate what you did and all your hard work, and we just got to keep going.
So we had the American flag, the largest American flag in the world, pulled out in a video, which I'll
Hmm.
talk about. There was a guy named Sky Dembski uh,
Uh-huh.
in 2002 learned that the Chinese had the biggest American flag. Well, wait a minute. The
Isn't
Chinese
that crazy?
American flag, that's crazy. So he decided to build or make the largest American flag. And he did that. And the largest American flag is 2.5 football fields long. And he
Wow.
passed away, and he gave it over to his close friend in his will to Commander James Alexander. Commander died and left it to his wife, Patricia Alexander. And she rented it out to this family, which you see here, which was the Sensor family. There was Sharon McCoy, Dane and John Sensor, and they're all pictured here. A couple of them have passed away. But 3 years ago in South Dakota, they pulled it out with 500 people. And there was 10,000 people at this event. And they're going to do it again here maybe in August. And we played the Star Spangled Banner. We played different music. And we had this
Right.
on many shows prior to this, letting people know. And it's very heartwarming when you hear this and you see these people doing this at night, all lit up. And it was taken by a plane over view. And
Hmm.
it may have been Trump's plane that took this. I'm not sure if that's true or not. But anyway, it's a great event. And we showed this many areas, and that stimulated a lot of people to see this because we told them what was going to happen. We told them who was going to be on there, and I think people really want to see him. And we found out that 80% of the viewing audience stayed the whole 8 hours. That's unbelievable itself. And it's bad enough that I had to stay there for 10 hours, but um, for people to sit and watch, you produced a good show. So for the first time, I give myself a little bit of credit because I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew if I got a nice range of people, including stars, but down to earth people that nobody
Yes.
knew. And when they heard them, some of them were radio show hosts, some were TV hosts, some were just average citizens. So we had a big variety of people, 46 people to talk to them, make sure that they were going to show up, took a lot of work. And, being everything that we did, it happened. So in other states that we have also, South Carolina, we got a guy, Joe Citino and Jeff Davis.
Hmm.
They put out a little email every day, 7 days a week, letting everybody know what's going on in South Carolina. So I think that's extremely important. One of the states that I was working on was West Virginia. Why did I work on
Wow.
that?
Hmm.
Because West Virginia has a rhino senator, and why would a red state vote in a yo-yo Democrat? So
Right.
I got upset, couldn't find anybody, but finally, the guy who's going to run for the Senate, his campaign manager got me a MAGA person in West Virginia. Now we got 300 people to work. Now in Rhode Island, um, there was a gentleman that lost the election for Congress, and he said, "Look, I got to do something." So he got all the people that lost. He went and turned all the uh, committees in Rhode Island, which were all pretty much rhinos and establishment people, to MAGA.
Hmm.
So the entire Rhode Island pretty much is all MAGA for America First. And now everybody in New England is coming to him and say, "Well, how did you do it?" So he's going to, establish, what to do. So let's go back to precinct strategy again.
Yes. Uh-huh.
www.precinctstrategy.com. What do you do when you become a committee man and a committee woman? Well, the first thing is you attend the meetings and you get to know people. Hopefully, all the committees are training you what to do. We want you to go out, number one, to get people elected. Our main goal is to get people elected. And you have to sign up voters to get more people in your precincts. Then you have to canvass neighborhoods. You could become a poll watcher or a poll worker. You could make phone calls, or you could do other things, within the group. But you can also make a lot of connections. Like I made, when I went to the last meeting, 50% of the people were wearing flag shirts. So it was very, I didn't go there to sell flag shirts, but people see me wearing them and say, "Where'd you get them?" I said, "I make them." So naturally do it. So now we have 2 Zoom meetings, which is very important. Um, I know you're come on to some of them, and
Hmm.
luckily it's during the day. We have a election integrity one, which is going to be this Monday coming up at 3:20 Eastern time, which is what, 6 hours. There's a 6 hours difference.
6 hours. Yes. Uh-huh.
That's going to have the top people on it. They're going to have people like Cleta Mitchell, Lindell. Excuse me. We're going to have uh, Jason um, and many other people doing a lot of training. And then in the evening on Tuesday at 8 o'clock Eastern, we're going to have our precinct strategy. And Michelle Swinnick and I started a SaveYourFreedom.com. Excuse me, www.savemyfreedom.com.
And this is basically going to tell people how to get proactive in their areas. Now, do they have to be part of the Republican Party, or is this an initiative that they can start within other organizations that are like-minded?
Well, you can be part of a group, and we don't care if you're independent also,
Hmm.
we want you to be Republican. And most of the people that come on are Republican. And, because I've been with President Trump and I support him, anybody who wants to get involved with the campaign, email me and we'll put it up again. You could become a volunteer for the Trump campaign. I was lucky enough to meet with the people, and I said, "Look, people are calling me, want to know how to get involved." And so they said, "Okay, let them know where to go." So we're letting people know where to go to volunteer. And again, these are my credentials: S Stern 1054 AOL and 954-318-6900. I'll hold it up a little bit because I'm known for this, because we have
Yes.
a lot of old people that watch TV because they're not working, or somebody who's working. So they grab their camera, they take it, and I want to make sure that they understand and they're able to get a hold of me, because
Hmm.
there's a lot of information that we have and we're glad to share it. So I want to close with letting everybody know that I'm an action guy. And if you have a couple of questions, I'll answer you a couple of questions. I'm getting a little hoarse in my throat. You can hear me coughing, so I can't go on too much longer, but glad to answer
Yeah.
your questions.
Oh, well, I really appreciate it. I mean, you answered a lot of my questions that I had, so I definitely appreciate your time. The biggest thing is we had talked a little bit before we went on was, those people who are discouraged because of the pathway that our country is headed. And it's so important that people hear from voices like you words of encouragement, because they feel that if we can't make a change in 2024, we lose our country. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the most important thing is to retain the House, because if you retain the House, it's status quo. And you
Mhm.
saw today they finally censored Adam Schiff. That
Right.
itself tells the country. And as I was listening to it, we heard the Democrats boo and do all that kind of stuff because they know they got nailed. And that's the first step. And fortunately, Anna Polina from Florida is the one that brought it up. And I admire her because I helped her on a campaign. She ran last time and lost against the guy that ran for governor, but this time he ran for governor. So she was able to win. And that's very big because Florida, is we turned Florida as red as could be. We went from minus 110,000 Republicans to plus 270,000. And that's because of precinct strategy. So, we can do what Venezuela did and just sit back and not do anything, or
Hmm.
we can get involved. So we must win the House. And what does that mean? That means that every precinct has to work to get these guys elected because we know that there's a Democrats all the way to the left, and then we have Democrats in the middle, and we have Democrats a little bit to the right. So we have to win those people over because they see what they're doing. They're seeing that number one, 6 million people are coming into the border. A lot of people don't notice the government's building cities to house these people,
Yes.
free education, free housing, free this, free that. And a lot of our people are on, you go to California, there's 180,000 people that are homeless. Well,
Yeah.
why does the government take care of them? We're just going to give all these people that come in from out of the country everything under the sun. Now, what's worse, when they did the $2 trillion thing for COVID, they put in 900 million, I think it was, to get people registered. Okay, they didn't say get Democrats registered, but they said to get people registered. Well, what they're doing, they're giving the immigrants social security cards, and if you read, there's a national registration where all you need is the last 4 digits of your social security number.
Mm.
That means that anybody can register basically if you have a social security card. 50,000 illegals have registered in Texas alone. So that's just some of the things that are happening that we're finding out. So you say, what can we do? If we sit back and do nothing, it's like everything else. I take the story of the mayor that ran in New York, Giuliani, who the first time when he ran, crime was at 10% in New York City. Second time he ran, it was 30%. He lost. Third time he ran, crime was 80%. He won. Now, do we have to wait in the United States till it's so bad that gas prices are $20 a gallon and inflation is at 10% instead of 6%? The interest rate, I don't know if you go back that far, but at one time when in my lifetime, interest rates were 18%. Can you imagine it? 18%.
Hmm.
So that's going to, stagnate our economy. And that's what's going to happen. So if you want to wait till fentanyl, instead of killing 100,000 people, kill 2 million people, and waiting till our dollar is so devalued and it no longer is a currency that the world uses, then just sit back and do nothing. But if you want to do something and get involved, you have to remember we can't always win, but we're going to win if we get 60 million people working. Think about this. If we have
Right.
200,000 and we get 60 million, all right, I'm being a little bit high. Let's say we get 5 million involved. That's going to accomplish things that we haven't accomplished before. So we won the House by the skin of our you know what. And that's because a lot of the elections, I'm not going to say they were stolen, but, you know, 9 have never taken anybody off the voter rolls. What does that tell you?
Right.
We're working, the main thing, and I'm going to give you the last thing, we're working on getting people off the voter rolls permanently. So I'm going
Hmm.
to with that. I want to wish everybody good 4th of July. Remember to buy your flag shirts at www.theflagshirt.com. And thank you very much for having me on your program.
Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate your time, and I will see you next week. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, and happy 4th of July. And again, happy birthday.
Thank you so much.
Aloha.
You got it.